Hello everybody and welcome to my video. My name's Thomas and I'm working on hexagonal pin blanks. I've tried a couple different methods, table saw, sanding, a couple other ideas that I've worked out, and I've come up with two methods that seem to work out the best. Excuse me. First one is sanding. Take a pin saver mandrel and I fit it out with these 5/16 nyloc nuts. And the nice thing about this is the threads are just ever so slightly larger than the diameter of the pin saver, but the Teflon catches, so it helps hold these in place, as you can see. Work on my pin blank. Now I'm setting that up so that I can have a little extra space. Giving myself a little bit extra room here on the ends with the 7mm bushings, and you can use those for different pin blank sizes so that you can set them out to how far you need to run along the edges of your whatever you're using to sand them. If you're using a power sander of some sort, belt sander, you're going to want to space these out so that they rest on the flat surfaces outside of the belt, and you're going to want to use a method where you place one and then roll the other one into place and just work your way around. One of the downsides to this is you kind of have to eyeball getting the two hex nuts lined up, and then when you tighten it down you have to check it again, make sure everything's lined up. And after that it's just a matter of working it down bit by bit until you're flush with each of the hex faces. Same thing on, like I said, on a power sander of some sort. You set one down on the edge and just roll the other one in, and I'd work it in stages, not all at one go. Just kind of work your way around, and eventually they'll give you a nice hexagonal piece that you can then put on the lathe, turn to soften the shoulders, the edges, to sand it, so you can have a little pronounced edges, or you can have it worked out to where it's a lot softer. The other method is using my router sled for my lathe, and I'll be moving over to that next. So I'll see y'all in just a moment. Alright, so I've got it set up now. This is my router sled, just a little battery powered trim router. I've got it set up so it extends out into the workspace. I've also got it set up so that I can move it back and forth, and it just rides along the slot there. Kind of one downside is I need to get this side counterbalanced a little bit, but to operate it I end up holding here and controlling both sides as I move it down. It's going to get a little bit noisy, so I'm going to put in my hearing protection, using the indexing feature to move forward 4 steps at a time so I can get all 6 sides. Not deep enough. I want it to be a little more aggressive than that. Also notice I gave myself enough room with some more slimline bushings so I can move on each side of the piece. Once you get your final depth set, you're going to want to make all the passes at that same depth unless you're really good at controlling where your router goes back to each time. All right, that looks good. All right, there's our hexagon. All the sides look relatively level. And like I said, once everything's set up, you can turn it and soften down the edges, sand it down. When you're sanding, I recommend back and forth, especially if you want to try and maintain sharper edges. But if you want to soften everything up, go ahead and spin it and sand it down like you would a normal pin blank a little bit. Just watch where you're working at. The cyanoacrylate for a finish is really tough to polish. I end up having to do that by hand, so it adds a lot of effort into it. But it does look nice. I'll include some pictures at the end of the most recent pin set I did to figure this out. And this is Osage orange. So I think once it's done, it's going to come out very nice. I've got a matching one I've got to do. I want the dimensions to be the same, so I'm going to leave this as where it's set at. I'm going to go ahead and finish that up. I'll see y'all in a moment. Alright, nothing there I can't fix up with a little bit of sanding. Didn't come out as nice as the first one, but I can work with that. I'll be back in a bit. So I sanded it down a little bit, smoothed out the edges. Yes, they're two different sizes. That's the way the pen and pencil kit are. But I noticed that my cut was a little deeper on this one. I think it had to do with the way I was holding my sled. I've got to put a couple shims on the runner in there just to make it a little bit more snug. If you noticed, I was holding it tight against this edge as I was moving it back and forth. I was better at that the second time than the first time, so I think that gave me a little bit of my difference. But they're relatively close. I could sand them down a little bit further. I think I'm just going to chamfer the edges a little bit. Other than that little bit of cutout, rough out I have there because I was using the wrong router bit. I don't have a fly cutter for that one yet. I've used it for cove cuts and decorative V cuts along pieces before. So definitely going to have to get a better bit for that. But yep, I think I'm just going to chamfer the ends in a little bit on the lathe. Sand them up and get them put together. Be back in a second. All right, other than the little bit of rip out I had from that router bit on that edge, that looks really nice for an unfinished piece. I am going to have to figure out what I'm going to finish it with, I'm definitely thinking I might go ahead and do cyanoacrylate and then just spend the extra time hand polishing it. I haven't tried a spray varnish before, so I may look into that and give that a go, but that's a very beautiful piece of wood. I'm going to go ahead and get it sister finished up. Just need to match that I have one side a little bit longer than the other. I kind of did that on purpose because I wanted the grip to be down here, to be a little slimmer. But yeah, we'll see how that turns out. All right, I got the second one finished up. I got those edges roughly about the same. I could have gone a little bit longer there. Backside's a little bit more matched. And the color and the grain on these is beautiful, even after the denatured alcohol evaporated. So I'm going to have to try and figure out what to use on here. Honestly, I'm thinking about a wood finish wax. I know some people say that's the lazy way, but sometimes that just helps the color stay what it is, and it darken this a little bit to a little bit darker orange. I have to see if I've got a little bit of this laying around somewhere and test it out to see how it would look. But other than putting the finish on and then putting the kit together, that's the hexagonal dowels for pin blanks and turning. Alright, so I've decided I'm going to go with Axe abrasive paste and polishing wax. I don't know if you can see the shine on that, but that one came out absolutely gorgeous. And by comparison, let's move it in a little bit. So by comparison, you hopefully can see it's not nearly as shiny as the wax version. So I'm going to show you real quick how I do that with the flat faces on there. I actually have two relatively inexpensive buffing wheels, one specifically for the polishing compound and another one for the abrasive paste. I don't get sponsored for this, but I did get a discount code off of somebody else's website. There's a couple of them out there, and it works out really well. I like it. Doesn't take a lot. Just kind of work it on there a little bit. Make sure I got enough on it. There we go. Now, my understanding is this is a moderate grit to begin with, and as it is used, it works itself down. It degrades into a smaller and smaller grit, or higher and higher grit. So we'll start out at a decent speed, get this worked in a little bit. You can already see that coming out a little bit. Then we'll take the pad and we'll work it for a little bit. Don't want to do that. And slow it down. And before I did this, what was on there was 600 grit. You can already see the difference. A little bit of denatured alcohol to clean the grit off. get it out of that crevice and off of the bushings as well. Make sure I get the flat surfaces. And dry it off a little bit. Turn on the dust collector, get some of the fumes from the denatured alcohol out, and while that's drying I'll swap over to the other pad as well. And we got the polishing and restoring paste wax we'll put on in just a second. It doesn't take much of this. We'll work it in a little bit to get it to loosen up a little bit. Work that in a little bit. I think the hopper under my dust collector may be getting full. Down, work on the flats. Alright. Shiny. It's a nice, relatively hard finish, especially for a wax. Catch some of the iridescence in that. I think these are about ready to put together now. Alright, so I got the pen kit put together. As you can see, the hexagons go well together. This is a pen kit, and next to it is a mechanical pencil kit. It's more like a drafting pencil than regular mechanical pencil, but it does work out very nicely. I like the color that orange comes out. It's on the yellow side now, but it is supposed to darken with age as it's exposed to ultraviolet light, so we'll see how that turns out in the long run, hopefully. The share, the method I talked about using the hexagonal nuts and sanding, is how I did this set. You can see the flats there. Ended up just skewed ever so slightly because the flats weren't exactly lined up, but it was very close. And I think it turned out to be a very nice set as well. And this is well, now I can't remember. Redwood. There we go. And then I have some teak pieces that I turned using the router that I've still got to work out, flattening the edges and a little detail in. As you can see, I did the flats and I came in with an angle bit and hollowed those out. I think when I turn it, I'm going to flatten these edges a little bit just to give it a rounder profile. And we'll see how that turns out. Maybe a little too much, but you never really know until you try. But I hope this helps out with people who are planning on doing stuff. Like I said, the simple way, hex nuts on the pin mandrel. You just got to work with the sandpaper, making sure you're keeping it flush and turning evenly. I really liked how my router sled works on these. I actually built it for a couple other things and it worked out very well, I think, to do this. Plus I can use the indexing feature and I don't have to do just hexagons. I have everything between 1 to 24 on there, so I can break that up in a number of different shapes or combinations of shapes. But once again, I hope this is useful for somebody. If you like it or you think it could help somebody else, share it. Let other people know about it. Other than that, have a great day.